Hey y'all, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and today I'm going to start a new series, and I'm going to call it Story Time with Dave. Okay, to get this started, what I want to do is I'm going to go back a few years, and I'm going to talk about some things that happened in my past. It's kind of going to be what this series is about. I want to recant some stories. Isn't that how they say that? When you tell a story about something that happened in the past? And I want to share what life was like for me as a teenager. What I want to talk about today was what I spent my money on. When I was in high school, I didn't have a job because I didn't have a car. And so I rode the bus to school every day. And we lived out of the city just a little ways. It wasn't far out in the country, but it was far enough that it wasn't convenient to like walk into town. You could do it, but it'd take you a couple hours. So I wouldn't go to town a lot. I would get an allowance of like $2 a day for lunch. And that would buy a lunch in the cafeteria, plus it'd leave you a little snack money. They had Coke machines around the campus, and you could get a Coca-Cola or whatever on your break. But what I would do is they'd give me that Coke money. I'd promptly walk in my bedroom, and I'd stash it in a drawer in my desk. And I'd just go to school and would do without and drink water out of the water fountain. And I saved that money up. And then I had a friend at the time. His name was Shannon Mitchell. Hey, Shannon, thanks for the help. Shannon would go to, I think it was Dalton, Georgia, pretty regular. And at the time in Dalton, Georgia, there was a mall. And in that mall was a bookstore called Walden Books. I don't know if y'all know about Walden Books. I think they've gone away by now. But it was a big deal bookstore back in the 80s. And they were in all the malls. And they had a fantasy gaming section. My first book ever to save up my lunch money to buy was this one. And I think it was $17. So that's about almost 2 weeks worth of lunch monies. Some days I'd take $1 of it, but you know, I could get a book about once a month. And I bought this one first. And one of my friends at school was a cartoon artist. And he actually basically personalized it, so if somebody stole my player's handbook, I could ID it without question. This is mine. You know, and Eric Gilreath done this artwork for me, and he done this one too. He was a real good cartoon artist. The third book I got an original monster manual. These are all Gen 2 books, okay? The Gen 2 books are labeled slightly different. If you look at the way the language is written, you know, they changed the logos and they updated the cover artwork. The contents of the books didn't change from Gen 1 to Gen 2. The books were identical inside. They just got new cover art with better artwork. But I did eventually collect, I think there's 4 or 5 of the Gen 1 books. And I finally got all of them. I have the whole set. The Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, DM's Guide, Fiend Folio, and I believe Deities and Demigods. It was all 5 of them. Pretty sure I got them all. I have a stack of these books. Over time, I collected almost all of them. I'm missing a few of the later ones because once I got into those special campaign building books, I just kind of quit buying them. You don't really need them. You only need to play the game. You literally need these 3 books: a Dungeon Master's Guide, a Player's Handbook, and a Monster Manual, so you have creatures to fight. This was a very big pastime for me in my high school years. And it followed me into my 20s. I played this for many years after high school. It's a really fun game if you like role-playing games. It's a lot of fun. I don't have a lot of time for it now, nor do I have easy access to a group. There's a group that plays over in Lafayette, but they don't play just Dungeons & Dragons. They like to play a plethora of role-playing games. And I'm always one of those kind of people that likes the original version the best. And this was kind of the original version of that game. And the newer ones, they use cards in some of them, and it's just, to me, it's unnecessarily complicated. Instead of buying like minute cards for my cell phone, because cell phones didn't exist in the 80s, and I didn't spend my time looking at Instagram, and I didn't spend my time doing selfies in front of a waterfall. Instead, I interacted with people around me, and we would play these games. We'd go to the public library and get a conference room. And we would go in that conference room and have campaigns. They tolerated it till we got loud. then they kind of threw us out, and we had to hunt a new venue. But we'd go to one another's house. Things were different. You know, I used to hear old people say things were different when I was a kid, and I thought, how can they really be that different? And now that I'm older, I get it. Things were different then. They just were. People interacted with one another because you didn't have this distraction of this alternate reality outside of this that took up all your time. You just didn't have it. And people would actually, you know, spend time together and go do things together. And it's kind of surprising now. I watch the youth today, and their whole world is absorbed into this device they carry around in their hand. It's just shocking. I found myself falling for it too, and I've got a video. But once I kind of realized it, I started backing off. I took the Facebook app completely off my phone. So I don't even look at Facebook during the day now. I don't want this to turn into a social media rant, because that's not what this is about. This is more about what I did when I was younger. He would come back from Walden Books over the weekend, and then on Monday, he'd bring my book to me at school. And they were wrapped in cellophane. You had to break the cellophane seal to get them out, you know. I guess that's how they kept from getting them scratched in the bookstore. But he'd bring it to me still in the cellophane, brand new. And that was so awesome. He bought me like sets of dice and books, they call them modules. And a module is like a prefabricated story that the dungeon master, who is in charge of the game, kind of guides the players through. You know, it's kind of a, what they call them, a story prompt is what some people say for writers. You know, they'll give you a story prompt. Well, that's what a module was. It was a story prompt. But yeah, I got my whole set of books one at a time, about once a month, with Shannon going to Walden Books. I didn't set foot in a Walden Books for probably 3 years and had been doing business with them once a month. It was funny. But back then, to go to the mall was a really big deal for us. We only went once or twice a year. Usually we went around Christmas time, and we'd walk through and see Santa Claus, and you know, and you go to Sears and buy clothes. Now Sears don't even exist anymore, as far as I can tell. It looks like it's about gone. But yeah, I just wanted to share a story with you, and I probably will do one of these a month, something like that, and talk about what happened when I was younger, and share that story with you guys and kind of preserve it into YouTube space for future generations. But yeah, I would take my lunch money, $2 a day, and I'd save all or a portion of it, and then I would send that money with a friend to a bookstore that I'd never seen, and the next Monday I would have a book. And that's how I built my Dungeons & Dragons book collection. So with that, this is David, the Georgia photographer, saying, until next time, get your camera out and go take a picture with it, all right? We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.